Today's story has a plot twist so wild that it feels like it belongs in a movie, but it is entirely true. This is what we do on this channel. We hunt for stories that lead you down one path only to throw you into a complete tailspin at the very last second. The story begins with police officers in Lebanon being sent to a desolate beach to investigate a strange object in the sand. As the story progresses, you might think you've figured out the ending. You'll think it's a predictable tragedy. But I promise you by the end, you'll be left saying, I have never heard anything like that in my life. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do. And we upload 2, 3, even 4 times every single week. So, if that's of interest to you, please sneak into the like buttons, house while they're sleeping, and take all their baseball caps and fold the bills into Mickey Mouse ears. Also, please subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a single upload. One freezing night in late January of 1965, a police officer named Fared Jabar and his partner were patrolling a beach in Antelias, Lebanon, a small village just north of Beirut. The weather was miserable. It was pouring rain. The wind was biting, and it was pitch black. Fared desperately wanted to be home in bed, but as a junior officer, he couldn't afford to lose this job. He needed the income. The reason they were out there was a Bond-style call reporting a strange object on the sand that looked like a body. Now, Antelias was a very safe place in the 60s. Finding a body on the beach was unheard of. Fared expected to find a dead sea creature, or maybe a pile of washed-up trash. He was annoyed to be out in the storm for what he assumed was a false alarm. However, as their flashlights cut through the rain, they saw it. A dark, human-like shape lying in the middle of the sand. They approached cautiously, hands near their holsters. As Fared got closer, he realized it was indeed a person. But something was profoundly wrong. The body was missing its head. It was clearly a murder. This wasn't a drowning victim. Someone had decapitated this man and dumped him here. Because it was the mid-1960s in a rural village, the police department was tiny. They had no radios and no way to call for immediate backup. The plan was simple. One officer had to stay and guard the crime scene, so no one would tamper with the evidence, while the other went back to the station to file the paperwork and rally a team for the morning. Being the junior officer, Fared was assigned the graveyard shift. He was left alone on a dark beach, in a freezing storm, standing over a headless corpse. Fared was terrified. He knew the killer could still be lurking in the shadows. To comfort himself, he checked his service gun and his knife. He told himself he was a trained officer and could defend himself. But as the hours passed and the cold seeped into his bones, Fared became exhausted. He eventually curled into a fetal position on the sand, intending only to rest his eyes for a moment. By 2:30 a.m., he was fast asleep. Fared woke up a few hours later in a state of pure panic. He had failed his one job, staying awake. He scrambled to his feet, heart racing, and turned to check the body. The body was gone. Fared's heart dropped. He reached for his gun to defend himself, but his holster was empty. The body was gone, and he had been disarmed while he slept. He searched for drag marks in the sand, thinking an animal might have taken the body, but there were none. He thought maybe a wave washed it away, but he was dry, so the water hadn't come that far up. The terrifying truth hit him. A person had walked up to him while he slept, stolen the corpse, stolen his gun, and vanished. Fared knew his life was over. He would lose his job. He would be shamed. And he might even be suspected of losing the evidence on purpose. He was desperate. What Fared didn't know was that the headless body he had been guarding was his own cousin, Habib Jabar. Habib had been robbed, murdered, and decapitated earlier that evening. The killer had taken Habib's head and money home, but realized later that leaving the body behind was too risky. When the killer returned to the beach to steal the body, he saw Fared guarding it. He was about to leave, but then he noticed the officer was asleep. He quietly picked up the body, unclipped Fared's gun, and carried everything back to his house nearby. Back at his house, the killer began chopping wood to start a massive fire to cremate the body and destroy the evidence. Fared, now awake and wandering the beach in a panic, saw a man in the distance through the morning mist, chopping wood near a small shack. Fared didn't know this man was his cousin's killer. He just saw a stranger living near the crime scene. Fared's mind, pushed to the brink by exhaustion and fear of losing his job, came up with a horrific, insane plan. He thought, if I can't find the body I lost, I'll just create a new one. Fared approached the man chopping wood. While the man was distracted, Fared took out his service knife, the only weapon he had left. He attacked the stranger, murdered him, and then decapitated him. He dragged this new body back to the original spot and laid it down in the sand. He figured that since the first body was headless, no one would know the difference. He would tell his partner he guarded the scene all night. When Fared's partner returned with a team of detectives, he looked at the body and immediately noticed something was wrong. Fared, the clothes are different, he said. The original body was wearing one thing, and this body was wearing something else. The detectives began an intense investigation. They searched the nearby shack and found a horrific scene. They found the original headless body of Habib. They found the missing head, and they found Fared's gun. Then, the final, unbelievable twist came to light. The stranger that Fared had murdered to replace the missing body was not a stranger at all. It was the original killer. In his desperate attempt to cover up his mistake and save his job, Fared had accidentally hunted down and killed the man who murdered his cousin. Fared had delivered the ultimate vigilante justice without even knowing it. However, the law didn't see it that way. Fared Jabar was arrested and charged with murder. He had saved his scene, but he had lost his soul. Thank you so much for watching. I think this story really serves as a grim and haunting reminder that desperation can lead people to make choices they never thought they were capable of. Fared Jabar was just a man trying to protect his livelihood, and in a moment of pure blind panic, he committed a horrific crime that, by some absolute cosmic irony, actually delivered justice to his own cousin's killer. But even though he technically took out a murderer, he became one himself in the process, and he spent the rest of his life paying the price for that one desperate night. I'd love to hear your take on this in the comments below. If you were in Fared's shoes, standing on that freezing beach in the middle of the night, realizing you'd lost the body and your service weapon, what would your next move have been? Would you have gone back to the station and owned up to the mistake? Or can you understand the psychological spiral that led him to do what he did? And as always, if you enjoyed this story, remember that we're back to our high-frequency schedule, uploading 3, sometimes even 4 times every single week. So please make sure you're subscribed, and that you've turned on all notifications so you don't miss a single drop. If you're looking for another binge-worthy mystery to watch right now, I've got a personal recommendation for you right here on the screen. It's a story with a twist you won't see coming. Alright, until next time, see you